1834. This was the last decorative campaign in the Alcazar before the fire that destroyed it in December that year. Despite not being a trained architect, Frank supervised the works, proposing designs to the monarchs and liaising with the craftsmen. Some of the original 17th century fresco paintings in these rooms
Hola a todos. Hello everyone. And so I'm just going to turn this on. Thank you very much for listening. I'm reading the first question, which is, can we see this French trend in other kingdoms in Europe at the same time? Yes, very much so. It was particularly at the beginning of the 18th century and all throughout the middle of the 18th century, French taste really dominated the sense of interior decoration and interior design, and it was spread little by little over Europe. In Spain, obviously, it was through the influence of the arrival of Philip V, a Bourbon king, and in other countries as well, it was a taste and a fashion that it was imitated throughout, with differences and with some local nuances, of course. And what we see in Spain, which could be the second chapter to today's lecture, if you will, is an Italian influence from the middle of Philip V's reign, because with the arrival of his second wife, Isabella Farnese, she will bring lots of Italian artists and Italian influence to the court. And we will see this in interior decoration, in architecture, paintings, and so on. So these two trends do dominate in Spain, but overall there is a French influence. And was this the primary residence of the royal family? The Alcazar was the main residence of the royal family since Philip II established Madrid as the capital in the middle of the 16th century. And it was the main residence. But the royal family had other residences that they enjoyed throughout the year. And it was really with the arrival of Philip V and then with the Bourbons, with this idea inherited from Louis XIV of using different residences for different periods at a different time of the year, that they established what is called in Spanish la mecánica de los sitios reales, something that we could translate into English as the working of the royal residences, which established that, for instance, summer was spent at the Palace of La Granja in San Ildefonso because it's nice and cool by the Segovian mountains. Autumn was spent at El Pardo because it's near this amazing hunting forest, an activity that the Bourbon dynasty very much enjoyed partaking. Spring usually was spent in Aranjuez, and other parts of the year were spent in the Alcazar. But the main residence of the royal family, the seat of power, was the Alcazar. In the room of Jimenez, we see mythological references. Did those clash with the Catholic mindset of the Spanish court? I wouldn't say that they clashed. I think that it was a quite conscious decision to use, first of all, a deity that is not a very famous one. I wouldn't expect that many people have heard of Jimenez before, and is one of these minor deities that remind us just of whatever he's protector of, which is marriage. And it was very fitting that this room, that was the link between the queen's apartment and the king's apartment, was dedicated to the god of marriage. But it is the only room in the Alcazar specifically dedicated to an Olympian god or a deity, completely different to Versailles, where the appartement of Louis XIV had a succession of rooms dedicated to various Olympian gods. And that's probably the case, is the very Catholic mindset in Spanish court. Yes, absolutely. I also wanted to say that I received earlier another question by a person who couldn't type in a question, and they were asking if there is any furniture left from this period. And of course, I couldn't touch on furniture during this lecture because it would have taken another extra half an hour. But yes, we preserve some furniture from this period. And some of it is exceptional. So we know that Philip V, the royal family was sent pieces of furniture, pieces of items of daily use, like dinnerware, silverware, clothes, different linen, and they were sent by the French royal family, so Philip V's family, as part of what is called the Articles of Paris, Articulos de Paris, and they were very much appreciated at court. And so sometimes there were small pieces of furniture, but then there were some other pieces that were made following the French taste, and this is chairs, for instance, but also some chest of drawers, and some others just following the Spanish baroque taste, what is called the stands, to hold these cabinets, these little cabinets with lots of different drawers where you would keep many documents or precious objects. And as well, some pieces of furniture that were inherited by Philip V from his father, the Grand Dauphin, who died in 1711. And they were sent, it was a long process, a long litigation or law process to establish what could be given to the Grand Dauphin's sons, or what had to be incorporated into the French crown, because he was the heir to the crown. And in the end, some pieces were sent to Madrid. So some of them were amazing pieces of dinnerware with some jeweled decoration and enamels, but we also know that they received pieces of furniture. And in particular, we know of 2 chests of drawers that are now part of Patrimonio Nacional, the Spanish Royal Collections. And in the floral marquetry tradition of André Chalboul, but that they have been attributed to other artists. And other pieces of furniture in what we know to be as bull marquetry were also sent during this time. Sergio Recuero asks, are there any remains of the Royal Alcazar, or was everything demolished when constructing the current royal palace? That's a great question. And in fact, the Royal Alcazar, it was severely damaged with the fire. And what it was decided, it was to demolish absolutely everything. So while the fire was going on, few pieces of furniture, some paintings, the most famous one, Las Meninas, were saved, and some other items. But what is the building? It was decided just to demolish it. And straight after, plans to create a new royal palace, this time a new royal palace in the international baroque style, similar to the Spanish, the royal palace that we have now in Madrid, it started straight away. And the same land was used, the same space. So the foundations of the royal palace that we see now in Madrid are actually the foundations of the Alcazar. But I will just take this opportunity as well to say, as I was mentioning, that there could possibly be a second chapter to this, which is the Italian influence during this period. And this is very much apparent in the palace of La Granja de San Ildefonso, because Philip V in 1724 decided to leave his crown onto his son, Louis I. And so he retired, he abdicated onto his son, and decided to retire to his favorite palace of La Granja de San Ildefonso, that he had started to enlarge and redecorate. And those pieces of alhajas and pieces of furniture that were inherited from the Grand Dauphin, Louis XV's father, were sent to La Granja, where they were supposed to be accommodated for the enjoyment of the king. But very sadly, Louis I, Philip V's heir, died only 7 months into his reign. So Philip V had to go back to taking the crown again, and he continued to be the monarch until his death. Yeah, that is also another chapter that is quite interesting in this story. And I have another question here that says, I remember in another book, think of Buen Retiro, and probably yes, so if you go to a very useful tool that I have used quite extensively in my presentation, because in the situation of lockdown, it's a bit difficult to go to a library or to access any other books, so everything had to be done with whatever materials I had here at home. A very useful material for all of you who are interested in researching this subject is in Gallica, which is the collections of the National Library in France. It's Gallica with a double L. And because in the French National Library, the Fonds Robert de Cotte are kept, and those are these fabulous drawings that I have just shown you in the presentation. Okay, thank you very much to you all. Thanks for listening, and stay safe. Goodbye.